Hey everybody, welcome to it. Another edition of, well, not really this day in hockey. This is really just a few comments on the Hockey Hall of Fame inductees. I've received quite a few messages and tried to respond to most of them, and I just thought it'd be easier this way, as I've done during the pandemic here, do a little video and post it up there. Look at, I think most people know that I fought the good fight. If you're a fan of Paul Henderson, I tried for 20 years to get him on the docket, get him inducted, packed it in after last year's valiant final effort through the Canadian Parliament and all parties and everything we did on Paul's 76th birthday on January 28th here in Ottawa at Parliament Hill was spectacular. They'll never be able to take that away from us. But at the end of the day, Yakushev went in 2 years ago, Nedomansky last year, and some not so thought of inductees this year, although at least nobody from overseas who maybe was a real head scratcher. But that said, look, there's a lot of angst every year, and even doing this video isn't going to change anything. 12 months from now, we're all back doing the same thing. But not me anymore. Not me anymore. I have totally withdrawn from any angst or being upset at all anymore. And it's not just about Paul, for sure. He's been my raison d'etre, if you will, the reason that I've really championed everything that I've tried to do, as much as I'd like to see Theo Fleury in, as much as I think Daniel Alfredson will go in, as much as I think Alexander McGillney. I mean, can you imagine putting in Nedomansky last year, trumpeting largely what he did overseas, which frankly, to be honest, is, I don't really know. And then adding on that he was this trailblazer coming over, which he was, initially to the WHA, and then finishing out with a couple hundred games in the NHL, and that made him Hall worthy. And to think that Alexander McGillney, with what he did on the ice in the National Hockey League, has a goal scorer, has a Stanley Cup winner, has a playing for multiple teams over an extended career, and coming over risking everything and then some, if not at least the same that Nedomansky did, and not putting in McGillney, is mind-boggling. And again, the announcements are made and the inductees' names are said, and we go, wow, Doug Wilson and Kevin Lowe, really, eh? Correcting that long time wrong, I guess. But at the end of the day, I'm going to evoke the words of my longtime dear friend and one of my mentors and a man who I idolize, and that's Brian Kilray, who is in the Hall as well and went in, I believe, 15, 16 years ago in the builders category, and rightfully so. And I had this discussion. He knows where I stand on Paul Henderson. He said, you know what, Liam? Once the announcement are made and the names go in, then just be happy for the guys. They're in. They were voted in. 14 out of 18, regardless of the year, regardless of who's on the committee. The debates were made, the arguments were made, now the videos were put forth, what have you, and these men and women accomplished the ultimate goal for them, and they got in. To try and catch up to the backlog, if who's ever watching this, if you made your list of 5 names, let's say, male and female, if I made my list, if we all made our lists, there would be some similarities, probably a lot, but there'd be some variance as well. Maybe some people didn't think Marian Hossa should have got in on the first ballot. They think, oh yeah, he's a Hall of Famer, but he should be waiting. Well, no, I didn't think so. I was okay with Marian going in as a first ballot Hall of Famer. So there you, Marian, there you go right away. With a discrepancy or a difference if you feel differently. So look, the men and women, and there's 17 men and 1 woman on that committee. 6 or 7 of them are personal friends of mine. I respect these people greatly, and I have the utmost respect for what all of them have accomplished in the game of hockey. I've tried to carve out my own living for 40 years, as you all know, and I just feel strongly on who I think should be in and who shouldn't. Obviously, I feel I can form my own opinion. If I was on the committee, I would gladly have a vote. Do I think that it's ridiculous how it's run like the KGB of the 60s and 70s? Absolutely. The fact that there's no transparency, we know nothing, who's been nominated, any of the process. That's been a farce for years, and it continues to be. And that shroud of secrecy that envelops it just speaks to not impropriety, because at the end of the day, 14 votes have to be accumulated. I've contested for years that some of the powers that be do hold a much more significant, even if they're non-voters. And I'm referring to people like Harry Sinden, the late Jim Gregory, now guys like Lanny McDonald, that these people, as much as they don't have votes as president or emeritus type status within the Hall of Fame, that they've carried a lot of weight for years. And some of the selections or non-selections, I believe, this is just my opinion, that's been based somewhat on the not the instructions, but let's just say the pointed comments of those men over the last several decades. And look, if you ever want to see where this all started, or I think it all started, go to the 1960s. And the Hall came in late, right? 1945. The Stanley Cup had already been around since 1893, and the NHL since 1917. So when they started inducting players, and I think that first year in 45, they put in 7 or 8, and many years was 3, 4, 5, 6 guys, 7 guys. They got to 1960s, has the original 6 era, if you will, which essentially started in 1942. They get to the 1960s, and they went, you know what, we got a glut of guys that we want in here. And they just started firing bodies into the Hall of Fame. Go back and look at the years in the 60s. It was either 64 or 65. They put in 26 players in 1 year. 26 players. Now, I know every one of them. I guarantee you nobody else does. And that's fine. It's what I do for a living. I don't expect you to. I don't think every one of them was a Hall of Famer. I think the process and the politicking, the backslapping, the handshakes began in earnest at that time. And the ball just spun from there. And for every year, like a 72, when you get Jean Beliveau and Rocket Richard, or not Rocket Richard, Jean Beliveau, Gordie Howe, I think, and Glenn Hall. It's unbelievable. There's a few years, right, that have been just where they're all no-brainers. Almost exclusively, though, on every year, there's going to be debate and discussion. And yeah, I can go back over the last 20 years and I could pick easily 6 to 8 guys, 10 maybe even, that I don't think are Hall-worthy or of Hall status. But this is where we are at today. And many of you on social media have pointed this out. You call it the Hall of Very Good or the Hall of whatever, just something lesser than what many of us feel it should be. I don't think there should be a timeline. I mean, you put in Nedemansky last year. He hasn't played a game in 36, 37 years. Yakushev never even played in the NHL. The last competitive game of hockey he played was 81 or something. So, Rogie Vachon, Dickie Duff going in the 2000s here, both long decades after they played. People talk about a veteran committee. I'll just give you a little history on that. There was one, or a veteran arm, if you will. Excuse me. Lasted from, I want to say, 1991 to 2000. In fact, I can tell you the exact date that it ended. It was January 5th, 2000. How do I know that? That's the date I had my press conference in Ottawa at the Prescott Hotel, announcing that I was going to start my campaign to try and get Paul Henderson inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And while en route to the Prescott Hotel on that day, January 25th, 2000, I had a phone in my car. And the phone rang. And it was the Hockey Hall of Fame. Some young woman instructed to call me and tell me, "Oh, Mr. McGuire, I understand you're having a press conference today in Ottawa." How'd they even know? I mean, the internet was only 5 years old. It wasn't like it was... Anyways, I put it out there, but I guess word got to them. And they said, just so you know, if you're thinking of possibly using the veteran category to nominate Paul Henderson, it has since been eliminated as of today. January 25th, 2000, as I was driving in for my press conference. I mean, come on. This is the way it works. Here's who gets in today. It's the automatics, like Jerome McGinley, and then it's the agendas. So somebody put forth Doug Wilson. Their agenda was to get him in however many years since he last played, 25 or whatever it is. And somebody put forth Kevin Lowe for the same reason. And you can, listen, you want to build up an argument. For anybody that's even in there now who you may disagree with, like I said, the people who are in favor of Nedomansky are passionate about what he did in Czechoslovakia. I tell you, it was so impressive, and the competition. and then, he defected, and he led the way. He came over. He's one of the guys coming over. Went to the WHA, and just a mass influx of Czechs just came flying in after him. Not so much, but you know what I mean. And Yakushev, hey, listen. When Paul Henderson was in the Stanley Cup Finals in 1966, playing against Jean Beliveau and Henri Richard and Yvon Cornouet and Gump Worsley and J.C. Tremblay and Teddy Harris, Yakushev was helping to beat Italy 28-3 in a World Championship. I mean, come on. There is no comparison. Clearly, going through the Italians in the mid to late 1960s was a much, much more difficult task than what Paul Henderson was doing in the NHL. Folks, let it go. Let it go. I've let it go. I could care less. The only thing I do regret is a couple weeks ago on a radio show, they got me going. I got wound up and teed off one more time. I swear to God, I never will again. I swear to God, on Paul Henderson. I'm so done. But they got me going, and I said something that I regret. I said I'd never set foot in the hall again, and that was a stupid thing to say. I'm giving a 2-week take back on that. And it's a beautiful building. The displays are gorgeous. And the work that the men and women have done, either to put them up, maintain them, run everything, the gamut that they do there, I have the utmost respect for. Every one of them. From Mike Bolton and Phil Pritchard, who guard the cup, through everybody that I know that has anything to do with the hall, I have the utmost respect for. And I just through being worried or concerned about who they put in. Let's be honest. There wasn't anybody going to bed 2 nights ago saying, God, I hope this is the night that Kevin Lowe goes in. Or I hope this is the night that Doug Wilson goes in. But like Brian Kilray says, good on them. And congratulations to them. And that's how I'm going to end it today, by congratulating those two guys. And I know Dougie's brother very well. I've met Dougie a couple times. Ottawa guys. Oh, looks good on the 67s and good on the city of Ottawa. And, Kim St. Pierre, congratulations. I think another woman could have got in. I'm surprised there. And I'm surprised that Kenny, I'm surprised they put somebody in that's still involved in the game. But, I mean, Gary Bettman went in. And he's still the commissioner, so who knows, right? Listen, congratulations to them. That's what it's all about, right? Giddy. Stay strong. Stay strong.